Hi, this is Beersborn, and welcome back to Game Design. We're going to start a new game project in this tutorial. I'm here in Construct 3, and I want to start by clicking New. Now let's name this project. You can name it whatever you want. We're going to make a side-scrolling game, so I'm just going to call it Sidescroller 1. Now for the preset, I would recommend 1080p landscape. And let's check the optimize for pixel art box. We're going to make pixel art sprites for this eventually. And go ahead and click create. And here we have our new layout. Now, let's start by adding some objects. I'm going to make an object that represents my player's character. So I'm going to right click anywhere in my layout, insert new object. I'm going to go down and find sprite. I'm going to click on it one time. That way I have an opportunity to name it before I create it. I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it player. Click insert, click anywhere, and here's our animation editor. Let's just make a temporary sprite for now. It doesn't have to look good. We'll make a good sprite later. I'm just going to make a quick, let's see. Just make a quick sprite. Give it a fun mouth. Perfect. And go ahead and close your animation editor. We'll make a better sprite later. This is just a temporary placeholder. Now, with the sprite, we're going to give it a behavior so we can control its movement on the screen. So let's go over to the left side. We find add or edit behaviors. We're going to add a new behavior. And let's go down to the movement section. Now for this game, we're going to make a side-scrolling platformer game. And Construct has a platform behavior that will open up a whole bunch of options for us once we get into the event sheet that will help us make the movement work. So let's use the platform behavior. There are other ways to do this too, but I think this is probably the most effective. Now we also want to add controls for our game. We want our player to use the keyboard in this case to move the character around the space. So I'm going to have to add a new object, right-click, insert new object, go down to the input section, and here we'll find our different input modes. Let's do a keyboard. So now I have two objects over here. I have my player character and I have my keyboard. The other thing we're going to have to add is an object that represents the ground. If you hit play right now, because we added the platform movement behavior, it's going to add physics to our object. So unless our player is standing on the ground, they're going to fall. So we need to have some kind of ground that our player can land on. So let's go ahead and insert a new object for that. It's going to be a sprite. I'm going to call this ground 1. You can call it whatever you want. And again, this is going to be kind of just a temporary placeholder. We'll make better ground later. For now, I'm just going to make a blue square. Keep it simple. Go ahead and close your animation editor. We can adjust the size to make a little platform for our character. Now, if we hit play, our character is going to fall right through the platform. And the reason why is because we haven't told Construct to make this a solid object yet. If we go over to the behaviors while we have our ground selected, we're going to add a new behavior. You'll see up at the top right, solid. What that does is it makes the collision polygon on this object track it as a solid object that other figures or other objects can't move through. So if I hit play, there we go. It works. It stops right on the ground. Now, there's a couple weird things about this that I think we should fix up. For one, we have this big black border around our demo. For some reason, the default settings in Construct add that border when we first start a new project, but it's a quick fix to turn that off. What you want to do is just click anywhere in the gray space to deselect everything, and then look over on the left side, you'll see Project Properties View. If you click on View, scroll down towards the bottom, you should see this, full screen mode, and it's probably set to letterbox integer scale. If we change that to scale outer or scale inner, either one, scale outer and hit play, then it makes it fit the screen when we press play. Now, the other thing that's kind of weird is you see that there's a gap between my ground and my character. The reason for that is because of the collision polygon. If I double click on my sprite and go to this tool right here with the little triangle and the dots, this represents where Construct thinks the physical body of this object is. And right now it's probably much bigger than your actual sprite is. I would recommend shrinking it down a little bit. Make it fit a little bit closer to the graphic. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can also add new dots by double-clicking on any one of the points and customize a little bit more. But again, this is just a temporary placeholder, so I wouldn't spend too much time making this perfect. Good enough. Now if I hit play, here we go. Now, by default, you can control your character using the arrow keys. And the up arrow will make your character jump. But we want to be able to customize those controls a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to head over to our event sheet. And we're going to start creating some events that allow the player to push certain keys on the keyboard to move left, right, and jump. So let's do that. We're going to start by adding an event. The condition for this event is going to be when a player presses a key on the keyboard. So I'm going to go to keyboard, and let's do key is down. We have this section right here, key is down in the middle. That means whenever a player presses down a certain key, let's choose which key we're going to have the player press when they want to move their character to the right. I'm going to choose the D key. Click OK, and click Done. So the condition is when the keyboard D is down, then we can add an action. And if I go to my player, I can scroll down to the section of actions for the platform behavior. There's a bunch of options here. One of them is simulate control. We can simulate control going left, right, or jump. When our player presses the D key, I want them to go right. And click Done. Let's do the same thing for left as well. Add event. The condition is going to be the keyboard. Key is down. Click to choose the key to move your character to the left. I'm going to use A. Click OK. Click Done. Add action. Go to our player object. Go down to the platform behavior and simulate control moving left. Now for jump, let's use the keyboard. I'm going to do key is down. I'll do the space bar for this. I think space bar for jump makes sense. Click Done. Add action. Go to our player object. Simulate control. Jump. Now let's try that out. D to move right, A to move left, and spacebar to jump. Excellent. Now, the movement is kind of slow and the jump is a little sluggish. We can change the properties of the platform behavior over here on the left. As long as you have your player object selected, you'll see all of these numbers over here. Max speed is how fast our character moves. And you can adjust that. There's no one right answer here. It just depends on how fast you want your character to be. It also kind of depends on how big your character is. If you shrink down your character smaller, then they'll feel like they're moving faster, even if it's the same number. So you have to kind of just figure out what you want to do. I'm going to turn mine up a little bit. Maybe I'll do 600. For the acceleration, that's how fast it goes to full speed. A lower number takes a player longer to make their character feel like it's actually moving. I would recommend, especially for a game like this, turn this number up to like 99,999. Same for the deceleration. The deceleration is how long the character is going to keep moving after the player lets go of the direction button. The reason why you want this to be a high number is because you want this game to feel responsive. It doesn't feel very rewarding to a player if they die because the controls are just kind of like sloppy, right? So a more responsive game feels better, and a higher number for the acceleration and the deceleration helps with that. For the jump strength, the higher the number, the higher they'll jump. But it kind of has to do with the gravity too. The higher the gravity number, the quicker they'll be pulled down to earth. And you have to kind of find a good balance between those two numbers to make the game feel the way you want it to feel. Typically, I like to turn up my jump strength a little bit, so maybe I'll do like, 1,600. And I also like to turn up the gravity. Maybe I'll do like 2,000. So that way they jump pretty high. Let's test this out. They jump pretty high, but they also fall pretty fast. And that might be too high of a jump. And the fall is actually kind of slow. One of the reasons why your fall might feel a little floaty is because of the max fall speed. That's how fast your character can fall at its max. So you typically want that number to be pretty high too. If the gravity is 2,000, I'm going to turn up my max fall speed to like 2,000 also. See how that feels. Better, still kind of floaty. I'm going to turn up my gravity even higher. I'm going to do like maybe 3,500. And I'll let you kind of play around with this. Find numbers that you think feel good for the movement of your game. I'm going to stick with that. I think that works pretty well for me. Now, double jump, if you check that box, it allows your player to jump while they're in the air. So they can do one jump and then a second jump. You can have that. checked or not checked, it's up to you. Jump sustain, if you turn that number up to like, I don't know, I'm gonna do 150. That means the longer they hold down the space bar, the higher they'll jump. So they can kind of control their jump height a little bit. And you can mess around with that. Default controls means that your player can use the arrow keys to move and jump. You can have that checked or unchecked, it doesn't matter. It depends on if you want your player to be able to use the arrow keys for movement. And then we have enabled. And enabled just means like, do you want this behavior to be on? And we do, so let's leave that checked. Excellent. Now our next step, let's make a little level. I'm gonna put a platform down here, put my guy down there, and let's drag and drop a couple more platforms in here. Just over from the left side, I'm gonna drag and drop them in, and I'll make a little staircase here. Now let's try it out. Great, it works. Now let's go ahead and save our project. I'm going to click the Save Project up here on the top left. It's going to ask you where you want to save it. I would recommend saving this to our network, to assignments in, or wherever we've been saving our projects. And let's name it. I'm going to call this Sidescroller 1. I'll put it on my desktop. Okay. Now, next, let's make a camera for this game. Now, if you zoom out in your layout, I'm holding down the control key and I'm zooming out with the mouse wheel by scrolling the mouse wheel. And I can see that I have all of this space for my level. But right now, the only part of it I can see is the top left rectangle. That's how much of the screen we have, right? And even if I put stuff that's like outside of that, we can't really get there because we can't see it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create a camera that allows our player to move around that bigger space, and the screen will kind of scroll to follow them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna insert a new object. It's just going to be a sprite, and I'm going to call it camera. Click anywhere. And what this looks like doesn't really matter. The player is never going to see it. This is just something that only you will see, really. So just draw something. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to draw a little camera symbol. This is the symbol for a camera. And there it is. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. And again, we're going to make this invisible so the player will never see it. And we're going to give this camera a behavior. Click on behaviors over here on the left, add a new behavior, and we're going to give it the scroll to behavior. What scroll to does is it always centers the view on the screen on this object. Let's click add. And now wherever we put the camera, the screen will automatically be centered there. When we hit play, now my screen's over here. Or if I move it over here, now my screen's over here. What we want to do is make this camera follow our player around. So whenever our player moves, the camera will follow them. To do that, we're going to head back over to our event sheet. We're going to add another event. We want to think about what's the condition for this event going to be. We want this to happen all the time, right? The camera's always going to be following the player. So whenever we have something that we want to have happen constantly, we can go to System, and we can find every tick. Every tick means happening always. The action, we want to take the camera, we want to make it follow the player. So I'm going to double click on camera. There's different options for how you could do this. Let's try doing it this way. Go down to the bottom and find set position. Double click on set position. Let's go say, okay, what X and Y coordinates do you want to set it to? Let's set it to be the X location of our player and the Y location of our player. So I'm going to type in the name of my player character. Mine's just player. You might have named it something different. You can see what you named it here. Player.x, that's the left to right X location of our player object. And for Y, player.y, the up and down location of our player. Now, when we hit play, we'll see that camera is always like stuck to our player, right? No matter what happens, where we go, we can move around the screen and the camera will follow us. Excellent. We could do some more dynamic stuff with the camera later, but I think that'll work for now. Well, let's do one last thing. Let's make the camera invisible. We don't want the player to see the camera like stuck to our player, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to our layout and make sure you have your camera selected. And then over here on the left panel in our properties, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's an option for initially visible. And by default, the box is checked. What this means is like, do you want your player to be able to see it? And if we uncheck that box, then the object becomes invisible to the player. We can still see it, but once we hit play, it won't be there. Still works, it's just invisible. Awesome. Okay, now we're gonna have different levels for this game. Let's talk about how we can create a second level. Right now we have one layout and one event sheet, right? If we look over here on the right side under the projects menu, we have layouts, layout 1, event sheets, event sheet 1. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a new layout for each level and a new event sheet for each level. To do that, you can right click where it says layouts. You wanna click on add layout. It's gonna ask you, do you wanna add an event sheet with it? And we do. We always wanna add an event sheet with it for the most part. So now I have layout 1 and layout 2. And I have event sheet 1 and event sheet 2. I also have the tabs up here so I can move between them. If there's ever a tab that you don't see up here, you can open it up by double clicking it over here in the project window. So if I want event sheet 2 to pop up, I can double click event sheet 2. If I accidentally close layout 2, I can reopen it by double clicking on it over here. So now I have a second layout. It's a big blank screen, right? There's nothing over here. I have an event sheet. It's a blank event sheet. We need to start naming these things so we know which one's which. And we're gonna do something that might seem a little weird at first, but it'll make more sense as we go. This first layout, this is not actually gonna be level 1. This is just gonna be kind of almost like a dumping ground where we test all of our stuff. In Construct, you have to have every object in the game somewhere. So usually we just have like a layout where we can store all of our objects and we can test out new stuff, but it's not something that the player will ever see. So typically what I'll do is I'll rename layout 1 and I'll call it like a test layout or something like that. The name doesn't matter as long as you know what it is. That's where we're going to test stuff out and dump all of our objects. Now layout 2, that's going to be our first level. So I'm going to right click and rename that level 1. Now for the event sheets, event sheet 1 is where we've added these events, right? What I'll typically do is I'll change the name of event sheet 1 to something like core events or something along those lines, because this is the set of mechanics that'll control our whole game. This is like all the most important stuff. So I call it like the core events because it's the most important events. Event sheet 2 is the event sheet that's going to be hooked up to level 1. So I'm going to call this level 1 events. You can call it whatever you want. You just want to make sure you know what everything is because it'll get a little bit complicated later when we have a bunch of these. Now you can check to see which event sheet is connected to which layout. Like for example, if I click on test layout, I can see over here on the left, if you just click on the gray area, it says like name test layout, event sheet for level 1. It's called level 1. The event sheet is level 1 events. Great. Now we can add stuff into our level 1 just by clicking and dragging it from over on the right panel. So since level 1 is empty right now, let's build a very simple game. Let's just kind of throw our player in there somewhere. I'm going to start them down here at the bottom. Let's throw some ground in there. I'm going to stretch the ground out so we have a little ground line for our character. And then maybe I'll just do like a little slope here. This is just kind of a temporary level. Doesn't need to be good. We'll make a better level later. Take a minute, finish that up. There we go. We also want to add the camera in here too, so it'll follow our player around. Now when we have level 1 selected, let's hit play. We can test it out. Oh, it doesn't work. The reason why it doesn't work is because level 1 is connected to the level 1 event sheet. And the level 1 event sheet is empty. We have no events there yet. You might be thinking like, this is going to be really annoying if we have to copy all the events from the core events to each level's event sheet. We don't. What you want to do is you want to right click in your level 1 event sheet. And what you can find at the bottom of this list is an option to include an event sheet. If you click on include event sheet, it's going to ask you which event sheet do you want to include here. We're going to include the core events. What's great about this is whenever we make a change to the core event sheet, it'll automatically take effect in event sheet 1 too. It'll automatically push it out to all the different event sheets. This is the best way to do it, because that way when we adjust stuff, we just have to adjust it in one place. Even if we have 100 levels, it'll make it take effect in all the different event sheets across the entire game. So include event sheet, core events. Now when we try it out, it should work. Camera works, our movement works. We can move up this mountain. There we go. Let's try making a second level. So I'm going to right click in the layouts, I'm going to add a layout, add event sheet. I'm going to call this one level 2. Now we have event sheet 1 over here. I'm going to rename this one level 2 events. So we have level 2 with level 2 events. Now the level 2 event sheet, we want to include the core events here too. It's empty, right? So right click, include event sheet, core events. Level 2 is empty, so we can build a second level. In this one, maybe I'll have my player start a little bit higher. And there's a platform kind of floating here. And they'll have to jump down here or whatever. And again, this is all just kind of temporary, so don't worry about it too much. We try it out. And our level 2, oh, the camera doesn't work. And the reason why the camera isn't working is because we haven't added the camera in yet. So I'm going to click and drag camera into that level 2 layout. There we go. Great. Now we can also adjust the size of any layout. This is like the default size of a layout in Construct, but you can change that. If you click on the gray area in any layout, up here on the top left, you'll see size. This first number is how wide your level is, and the second number is how tall your level is. So say you want to make a level that's more long and horizontal, you can turn this number up. So maybe I'll do like 6,000, and maybe I'll make it a little bit skinnier. I'll make it like 1,200, and now my level is long and skinny. So you can kind of adjust the size of each layout to make different orientations of levels. Some might be vertical, some might be horizontal. Cool. Now the last thing we're going to add today is we're going to make some kind of system so that we can move from one level to the next. We're going to make just a simple door for now. And again, this is temporary, it's a placeholder, but we're going to draw just a very simple door, and we'll make it so when our player gets to the door, they'll automatically move to the next level. So let's go over to our test layout for now. I'm going to right click, I'm going to insert a new object. It's going to be a sprite. I'm going to call it door. And I'm going to draw just a very simple door. Perfect. Okay, there it is. Just kind of put it anywhere in the level. Let's go over to our level 1 and let's place that door somewhere in the level. So I'm going to put it on the opposite side. Our player starts here. They have to climb up the mountain and the door will be at the end. What we're going to do is we're going to make an event that says when the player gets to the door, they want to move to level 2. Now we don't want to put this in the core event sheet. And the reason why is if we make an event here that says whenever the player touches the door, go to level 2, what are we going to do when we have a door in level 2? We don't want to go back to the beginning of level 2, right? Each level needs to have the door direct them to a different level, the next level in the series. So to do that, we're going to put these events in the specific event sheets for each level, not in the core events. Whenever there's an event you want to have happen to just a single level, put it in the level 1 events or the level 2 events or whatever. Whenever there's something you want to have happen to everything in the game, you can put in the core events. So what we're going to do is we're going to head over to our level 1 event sheet. We're going to add an event, and the condition is going to be when our player touches the door, right? So I'm going to go to my player. I'm going to go to on collision with another object. I'm going to click to choose the door. So when our player collides with the door, add an action. And whenever you want to move between levels, between layouts, it's under the system. So I'm going to go to system. You can scroll down to the layout section, and we have an option for go to layout. And you could choose which layout we want to go to. This is level 1, so when we touch the door in level 1, we want to go to level 2. And click done. Let's try it out. Go to the level 1 layout, click play, get to the door, and I'm in level 2. Excellent. Okay, go ahead and make a level 3. I'll let you do this on your own. I'm going to add another layout. See if you can remember how to do it. If you don't remember, you can always review the way we did it for level 2. Include the event sheet here. Go to my level 3, add my player. Great, level 3. Now we're gonna do this one more time. We're gonna add a door from level 2 to take us to level 3. So here I am in level 2. I've added my door object in there. And I'm gonna go to my level 2 event sheet. Specifically for the level 2 event, I'm gonna have when my player on collision with the door, we want the action under the system to take us to layout 3. Try it out, see if it works. I'm gonna start over here on level 1. Now I'm in level 2. I'm going to move across to the door in level 2. Now I'm in level 3. Perfect. Let's leave it there. Save your projects, and we'll continue on this next time. Thank you.